Hello and welcome to my video, lesson 5.8, on comparing fractions, percents, and ratios. So let's just take a look at these questions. So remembering from the last video, 5.7, sorry, if you have like 7 out of 100, that equals 7%. So with that in mind, we can now look at these ratios, or these fractions, which would be the same as if they were ratios, and make them into percents. Now, the way to do that is to change them to out of 100. How do you do that? Well, equivalent fractions, which are the same thing as equivalent ratios, or basically think about it like this. Well, I'll use a different color maybe to keep it clear. So what do you have to times by to get 100? Well, in this case, times by 25. So if you have to do that, then we end up with 25. Alright, so if that's what it is, which it is indeed the correct answer, then it is 25%. So going through the same process again, what do you have to times by to get to 100? Well, you have to times by 5. So times by 5, top and bottom. Well, let me tell you a little hint. When I times any number by 5, I just take the number and half it, which would be 6.5, and then in this case, you have to like move the decimal over. So instead of 6.5, it's 65, which would be 65%. Okay, here's a slightly more difficult problem, but definitely a fair question. We would like to make this into 100, but we can't. So what we need to do is see if we can simplify. And in this case we can. Simplifying is nice and simple. So you have to divide top and bottom by the same number. What can we divide by? You can divide by 6. So if we do that, top and bottom, bottom is 4, the top is 3. Now you can go through this process. What times 4 equals 100? Well, same thing as above, times by 25, times by 25. We get 75 up here, which is then 75%. Alright, what if you can't do all of those things? Those are the most common types of questions. What if you can't do any of those and we have a question like this one, 1 out of 3? Well, I'm going to show you guys the slowest but always correct answer method, and then hopefully you can just remember these two options because these might come up at times as well. So the slowest option is dividing. Okay, so divide 1 by 3. Well, we can't do that, so I put a 0. Then we can add a 0 behind. Okay, well, how many times can 3 fit into 10? Well, it can fit into it 3 times. If we do that, we have a 9 here. If we subtract, we end up with a 1. Can't fit 3 into 1. We already did that column anyway, so we have to add a 0. Well, how many times can it fit into 10? 3 times. And so on. And you can see that it'll continue repeating forever. With that in mind, the 3's are repeating, but you can see that this would be, as a decimal, it equals 33.3% repeating. Like that. That's the best way of writing it down. You could also leave it, if it was rounding, at 33%. Same thing with the next one, except it'd be times by 2. So obviously, because you're multiplying the top by 2, that means the bottom is going to be times by 2. So if we do that, it'll be 66.6 repeating, or it's fine to leave it as 67%. If you do not have this repeating symbol up here, it will be wrong, because then you'd have to round it. Okay, so keep that in mind. Well, that is everything there is to say about comparing fractions, percents, and ratios. Good luck, and I hope this helps.